Start video. Try it. And we're good to go now, right?
I call to order this meeting of the City of Umatilla Planning Commission on August 27, 2024, 6:30 p.m. Please proceed with roll call.
Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Leon Tejeda, Commissioner Nobles, Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Cooper, and Chair McLean. We did have a
Let me bring up the planning commission members to make sure.
Thank you for the reminder. So planning commissioners, if you can, to help for folks who are listening online to the live stream, they can't participate, but we are streaming. So if you can remember to hit your button in front of your microphone, the little red light should come on, and then you'll be able to, folks online should be able to hear better. Our last commission chair is currently empty. We had it filled, but he resigned. So we will have to get that position filled. I'm hopeful we'll have somebody on board by your next planning commission meeting. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes, any discussion or clarification regarding minutes for the April 23rd, 2024 meeting?
Mr. Chair, if I could, can we at least do the introductions for the new planning staff? I realize I'm not going to be able to introduce the new planning commissioner because he resigned. But I would like to just take a quick moment to introduce our new planning staff.
Yeah, sure.
So I will put you on the spot a little bit, Nancy, but could I get you to stand up very briefly and just give us a quick introduction? So Nancy joined us from Boardman. This is her second day, so please, everybody, take it easy on her.
Good evening, my name is,
You're right. It's
good evening, my name is Nancy Miranda. I come from the city of Boardman. I work with, in my opinion, the marvelous Miss Carolyn McLean. And, I've been working in planning and love the community. I've also volunteered and lived here in the city of Umatilla, and oh, my heart just ran right back. So I'm now working here for the city and here for the community, here to listen, whatever you need, whatever I can help with. I know that sometimes it seems like we don't always find the correct words or the solution or as quickly or the exact way that the public would like. But regardless, I'm here to serve and here to serve each and every one of you. And hopefully this is not the only time I'll see you, and hopefully we'll continue to see you guys with within this next year and the years to come. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see what- Approval and discussion. Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
We are ready for you to start the script for the public hearing.
Students invited to UEC McNary Wampa Transmission Line CU-2-24. Ladies and gentlemen, I call this here from the Umatilla Planning Commission to order. The sign-up sheet is available for those who wish to place them up. If you wish to speak, please provide the relevant information on the sign-up sheet. You should remove the speak. Name and address. You will have 5 minutes to speak unless otherwise instructed. A person must testify either orally or in writing in order to be considered part of the decision and have the opportunity to appeal. Copies of the applicant criteria are available to staff. Information of this recommendation of these criteria Testimony and evidence must be directed toward these criteria or other criteria in the plan or these regulations for the applicable to the decision. Failure to raise an issue with statements or evidence sufficient to afford us and other interested persons an opportunity to respond to that issue may preclude appeals of land use board appeals on that issue. If new information is presented after the hearing, and may request a continuance to allow it to land use board. You may also request that the record remain open. A request must be made while the record is open. The procedures for the hearing and the order of presentations are as follows. 1, staff will summarize the application. 2, applicant may present testimony. 3, public testimony in favor of the application. 4, public testimony in opposition to the application. 5, neutral testimony. 6, rebuttal testimony from applicant. 7, record close. 8, deliberation. 9, planning commission vote decision. That concludes the introduction. We will begin with item on tonight's agenda, item 5.2, UBC McNary Waterfront Transmission Line, CU-2-24. Is there a challenge for the jurisdiction of the Municipal Planning Commission to do this line? If so, please state the challenge at this time. No biases to be declared by a commission member. If so, please state the bias or conflict at this time.
Do we get to challenge? Are we all here to challenge?
So just a point of clarification, this would be a challenge that Mr. Chair just read for the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this application. So if you don't think the Planning Commission has authority to make this, this would be the time to state that. If you just want to object to the application or challenge the application, that will be coming up.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah.
Say it again.
Mr. Chair, I did milk if you can try and lean into the mic a little bit to get it to go. We can turn up the volume. We will also try and turn the volume up in the room to get it to broadcast a little louder. Sorry.
Has there been any ex parte contacts regarding the upcoming matter that a commission member is required? If so, please state the ex parte contacts at this time.
My mother got a letter regarding this taking place, and I was gonna bring it with me since I live at that address. And she misplaced the letter, so I'm not sure exactly what it said, but I know it had something to do with what we're meeting on tonight.
I guess, Commissioner Jones, are you feeling? So you're just making the declaration? That satisfies the declaration?
I call for the staff report on the UBC McNary Waterfront Transmission Line, CU-2-24 at this time.
So before I jump into the staff report, I will try and speak slowly and make sure I project as best I can while also talking into the microphone so everybody can hear me. I did want to just take a moment to maybe go through a few housekeeping items. There is a very large crowd here tonight. First of all, thank you all for showing up. I realize it is you taking time out of all of your days to come participate in this process. I also realize most of the time when we get this large of a crowd is because folks are unhappy with an application for whatever reason. But we still very much appreciate you coming here and thank you for taking time out of your day to come participate. So a few just kind of rules of order. We do need to limit some of the background noise. As you guys can tell, it is hard with the microphones picking things up in the background conversation. So as best we can, we need to kind of have the background conversations to a minimum. Whoever is up at the podium kind of has the floor. It's their opportunity to speak. If we can make sure as you go up, I realize a lot of people don't do public speaking normally. That people might be nervous. Just take a half a breath. And if you can really make sure you get a clear mailing address, that's how we have to provide notice to you. So if I can't understand your mailing address, it's going to be hard for me to get notices to you. So you guys will know, you guys can continue to get the information and get copies of decisions and things moving forward. The other item I did just want to make sure everybody was aware of, because it is a large crowd here. So Oregon is what is considered a raise it or waive it state. That means that you have to bring your comments up on the public record before we close the public record, to be considered a participant. So that means if you have an issue, it has to be raised on the public record. Once the record closes, we can't consider that issue if you bring it up at a later point in time, right? So you have to bring it up on the record, so raise it, or you waive the ability to challenge that at a later point of time. We do generally try and follow the oppose, in favor, neutral. If you sat all the way through the end and then you just absolutely have to get up and come offer your comments, please raise your hand. We will make time for you to come get up and provide your comments. We would generally ask, we kind of try and follow that order. It just makes it easier for us to track. But at the end of the day, we want you guys to come up and be able to provide the public comment. Because
Stay with 5 minutes.
Yep, that's where I was going. So because we operate as the Planning Commission operates as the same rule as the City Council, we are limited to a 3-hour meeting. I know that sounds like a long time from now, but if we're all still here in 3 hours, we would have to continue the hearing. So in order to try and accommodate to get everybody in to have their opportunity to speak, we are going to limit the public comment portion to 5 minutes. Mr. Chair and I will both have a timer. So if you hear a timer coming off, we'll probably ask you to wrap it up. We're not going to just cut the mic off. You're done as soon as we hit 5 minutes, but we would ask that you kind of wrap it up so we can get everybody through. Mr. Chair, did I miss anything before I move on?
So I don't want to limit anybody's opportunity to present, but if anybody if anybody, so if everybody takes 5 minutes, we won't get through this tonight. You just want to lay that out clearly. If somebody presents exactly what you're going to present, we can absolutely capture your name and enter your testimony as just a copy of what was there. And I just want to throw it out there. And you don't have to get up and say the same thing that somebody before you did. And you can be recognized and just acknowledge that and help us get through collecting testimony if you choose.
Oh, that was all I had. Okay, so moving on to the staff report. I am the community development director for the city. Yes, I'm not the city manager. He is not here today. My name is Brandon Seitz, for the record. So moving into the staff report, I am Brandon Seitz. I'm the community development director here. Planning Commission, you all should have seen a copy of this sitting up on your spots. There's also copies of these in the back. So I just did want to make a note. Any letters that I received on the public that came in before noon on Friday, I did get those in the packets. They went out on Friday. They were included in your original packet that'll look something like this. We did receive 9 additional comment letters between Monday and now, or I think the last one came in about 4 o'clock this afternoon. So we have given you a name and an address and an exhibit number. Once I get through my staff report, I will probably look for a motion from Planning Commission to be able to accept those other 9 letters into the record with the exhibit numbers. So moving into the staff report, it really starts on page 6 of the application. It is a transmission line for a 230 kV transmission line. It is called a double circuit transmission line. Ultimately, the transmission line starts at the BPA substation down near the dam, kind of in between the downtown and the McNary area. Quite admittedly, it does do a little bit of a zigzag as it is coming out of the BPA substation. There are just a lot of existing transmission lines in there. It is kind of limited on space to be able to get new facilities in and out of that substation. One line then proceeds generally south, a little bit west of Lynn Road, to an existing substation in that area. I apologize, everybody, for the audio difficulties, but just bear with us. The other transmission line would head generally east across Army Corps property before it enters the Port Industrial Park area, then makes its way across private property to the end of Wanapa Road. In the application, except for the Army Corps, the applicant UEC has obtained easements from all of the underlying landowners, so they do have approval from all of the properties outside of Army Corps, which Army Corps did submit a letter of authorization allowing UEC to proceed while they are finalizing that easement process. As you will see in the staff report, I kind of walked through the criteria in order. So transmission lines are allowed in any zone because they are considered a community service use, meaning that to provide electrical service to the community, the city has determined that certain utility facilities, including transmission lines, can be located in any zone subject to certain standards. Those standards are addressed in the staff report. Most of that has to do with setbacks to a residential district. For those portions of the project that are inside city limits and apply residential zone, there's only one property that abuts a residential district that is way farther south on Lind Road. That property already has the required 20-foot buffer the code would obligate. Moving on from the site characteristics, we get into conditional use. There are 7 standards in there, as well as 1 additional standard specifically for utility towers, storage, tanks, and transmission and radio towers as well. Staff does feel that the applicant has addressed those mostly in the form of a narrative. They have referenced that there have been other larger planning efforts that have undertaken, including a route and corridor study that has led them to the selection of this route. Moving on from there, this is where the findings will admittedly get a little bit lighter. So we do move through all of the site review standards, which would apply to any application in the city, as well as our development standards for every zone that the application crosses. Most of those site review standards would be applicable to a building, right? So we're talking about requiring landscaping. We're talking about requiring windows on streets, on a wall fronting a street, or other things that really are not applicable to a transmission line. So there are several pages of additional finding as we go through those development standards, and some of the site plan things you will see in most cases, staff has addressed those as this is not applicable to the request. I'll pick on the access one. That's the easy one. There are several standards that deal with how we provide access to new lots or new properties. Those are all really intended for more traditional structural development or development of a new building. They don't necessarily apply to a transmission line where we're not creating any new access. So there are several sections through the staff report where we do say that these standards are not applicable because it's not a structure or we're not proposing new access. I kind of breezed through that relatively quickly. I will just also add the note that staff did not have the time to modify the findings to address comments. So I realize we are now up to, I don't have my list. I think we're up to 13 or 14 comment letters. So I have not been able to add those comments into the staff report at this point in time. I will pause there and see if you have any questions for me. I know the applicant is here. They have a presentation. I'm sure they can answer some additional questions for you that way. It's going to screen share. They're not letting me. Sorry, Wesley, 1 sec. I'm getting there.
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to work. Yes.
Evening, planning commission, community. Yeah. My comments this evening. I'm very one of the meeting members of. My name is Weston Putnam, and the public relations for the electric cooperative. And again, I have the opportunity to provide a little bit more specifics and details regarding the project. Next slide, please, Brandon. Before I do a little bit about Uinta Electric, we are a not-for-profit electric cooperative incorporated in 1937. As an electric cooperative, we are owned by the members we serve. We serve over 11,000 members across nearly 2,000 officer employees over the western Boardman and Morrow County east, heading east to the foothills of the Blue Mountains outside of Pendleton. I want to now point to that first bullet again and just emphasize that as an electric cooperative or as an electric
utility within the state of Oregon, we have a statutory requirement to serve anybody, anything within our service territory. That can be a business, entity, organization, or a single residential member looking to find electricity. We are obligated to serve within our service territory designated by the Public Utility Commission within the state of Oregon. Next slide, please. And with that obligation to serve, what we often do with any project is attempt to identify purpose and need for that project. And in this case, purpose and need for new transmission, or purpose and need for the Mary Tawana project. And there are three contributing factors towards the purpose and need. One, that first bullet point, is to increase and expand system reliability and capacity within the city or Umatilla, thereby supporting bullet number 2, which is to provide support and electrical load for economic development and future growth within the area. I emphasize future growth, but it also is aiding and supporting existing growth currently happening within the city and Port of Umatilla. And finally, the third bullet is to offer a transmission path for back to the state of Oregon and really from a federal level. Utilities in general, not necessarily just cooperatives, utilities of all types of business models from an electrical utility standpoint are being encouraged, pushed heavily to pursue renewable energy. I'm sure some of you have seen that in the media. What our biggest challenge and concern is the lack of transmission infrastructure to be able to transmit and transport some of that renewable energy. This line would help support it in that regard. Next slide, please, Brandon. So a little bit of specifics regarding the project itself. It is 230 kV, so it's 230 kV transmission. It is double circuited, and I want to pause there and explain a little bit more. Throughout the packet, on social media, communication to us, communication when we walked door to door last week, the biggest concern that we heard and we understand completely is the visual impact, the visual aesthetics, and the footprint that would be caused on it. I have 3 points that I hope addresses some of that, and then later on in the presentation, we provide simulations that you might be able to see existing as well as proposed conditions. Double circuit is what it sounds like. We, instead of just one line, we're double circuiting the line to where we are less of an impact or less of a footprint, where potentially in the future, we don't have to come back and propose an additional. The double circuit is needed at this time, and instead of having 2 lines be there, we are attempting to double circuit the structures, just do it with single structures that we types of structures that are being proposed are single steel poles, single monopole. So typically with 230 and 115 kV transmission, many of you may have seen the big, tall lattice style structures. We understand the visual impacts that those would have. And so we, in our planning and our construction, have proposed to go to single monopole poles to reduce the impact. And again, you will see them later on in the presentation. Endpoints that Brandon mentioned, point A to point B of this line starts at GPA's McNary substation there in Power City. That's east to our Umatilla Electric's Wanapa substation there in the Port of Umatilla. That line mile is approximately 5.6 miles. Height of the structures are up to 135 feet. And the span, which is from structure to structure, averages was around 400 to 800 feet. The third point about what we attempted to do from a visual impact, so we double circuited single steel monopoles, and then we went as far north as we could and we feel is practical to reduce the impact visually. You'll see through these simulations, I hope, some folks maybe at least a little bit more from the visual perspective. We went as far north as we could up to the railroad, and the downslope to the north of Rio Cinda, we feel it helps mitigate some of that visual impact. And again, through the simulations, I hope to be able to explain that. So that, to the community and to the planning commission, we know that was one of the biggest concerns, one of the biggest challenges faced with the community. So I wanted to take time to address steps that we took, and we did try to attempt everything we could to mitigate that. Next slide, please, Brandon. And before I dive into the simulations themselves, I wanted to take a moment and address probably the second highest concern that we received is, well, why don't we go south? Why don't we go south of 730 or south of 6th Street there? And there are several considerations there as well. And through the routing analysis or study that Brandon mentioned, we certainly did look at that option. And really there are 3 contributing factors. One is some of that land is exclusive farm use or DFU. There's currently, through the state of Oregon, you are not able to cross DFU unless there's an alternative option or alternative route. In this sense, the northern route does propose that. Second is much of that land is wetlands, which from a construction and electric utility standpoint makes it difficult for construction, operation, and maintenance. And then third, it helps address some of the comments we received as well, was there's already a 115, so that is the voltage is. There's already a transmission line there, and you use pre-existing structures to use the right of way. Certainly valid question, and we appreciate those type of questions. The answer is unfortunately no. The reason being that structure and that design was not designed for 230 and 115, as well as that current 115 that many of you may be familiar with, currently serves a sensitive load that would not be able to take a prolonged outage. And when I say prolonged, during the duration of construction, could be weeks, could be months. And that sensitive load is the prison. And so for, we believe, reasons, we do not feel that it's practical to be able to have a prolonged outage currently at the endpoint user, which is in this case, the prison. So 3 contributing factors towards why we felt that the south was not the proposed route, and why we feel the north is the most practical at this time. Next slide, please, Brandon. So now, hopefully everyone can see that. We will go through the viewpoints of each. Right now, we're looking at viewpoint 1, which is just west of the Door Road. You are looking northwest. Above our existing conditions, below our proposed. I'll let some folks just kind of look at that. That is probably one of the better slides to be able to view those single steel monopoles. In typically with transmission, whether that's 115 or 230, you see the large lattice style structures. Because of the impact that has been expressed to us and the concerns that you all have appreciate and understand, we have taken into consideration with our planning to limit that as much as possible. Next slide, please, Brandon. Moving on to viewpoint number 2, this is just north of Rio Senda. Again, looking towards the northwest above, you can see existing below proposed. Just let that slide sit there, Mitch. Next slide, please, Brandon. This is just sitting kitty corner of the McNary Golf Course. This is viewpoint 3, again, looking towards the northwest. You can see existing above, proposed below. Next slide, please. Now we're at viewpoint 4, standing on the riverside looking east. As you can see, existing above, proposed below. Between the first 3 simulations that you saw up to this one, the poles do have to come up a bit south. And if you stare at the map a little bit to the right, I'd like to explain a little bit why. Our opportunity to go as far north as possible is limited based on pre-existing structure, pre-existing industrial already in the area. So we do have to come a bit more south on this one. Viewpoint number 5. You can see a bit more east down Riverside, existing above, proposed below. And finally, viewpoint number 6. Existing above, proposed below, looking a bit to the east.
You haven't addressed the poles to the west. You start at the bank of the dam, but you don't go the other way and tell us where the poles are gonna be.
On these past 2
To the
simulations.
west,
Where most of the houses are.
where most of the houses. One of your poles will be right directly in my view. But you don't show that.
We'll take that into consideration.
You're shooting at an angle, so that's right.
Yeah. But you should have took a picture of each pole.
Hold it, folks, hold it. That's not what this is about. Let's let the applicant do his testimony. You'll have all the chance you want to provide testimony when it's your turn. And we'll honor each other's opportunity to testify.
Thank you.
Another one, shut up.
Next slide, please, Brandon. So with that, the planning commission, I'm open to any questions, and then obviously with testimony, we answer any of those questions as well. What I want to address in the presentation, during some of the material that was seen, were the 2 major concerns that we saw, visual impacts. Hearing there's still more concerns, we can certainly take that into consideration and offer. finally second was why we didn't go the south route. I'm hoping I was able to offer some reasons why we were not able to there as well, as multiple factors played into that. With that, that's all the information I have. And again, to the planning commission, thank you. To the community, thank you for your engagement and participation.
Any questions from the commission for clarification?
I think that after we hear a lot of comments, we'll be able to have some more conversation.
I have a question. I'm wondering if you can address, several of the letters, talk about fire risk. Can you address that as well?
Yes, great question. Thank you. But much of that is in the Jim's packet as well. In general, that is a top concern of Units Electric is wildfire mitigation. And I can see and understand the concern of transmission line just north of you adding to that. And what I can say to that is we feel, so currently Units Electric has a very significant wildfire mitigation plan for our whole system, not just transmission. But as you go into the levels of different types of voltage, whether it's distribution or transmission, your inspections increase heavily. So with the transmission line of 230, we would be there regularly inspecting. In addition to that, it would be coming for a wildfire mitigation plan, which gets approved through the state of Oregon. And so with that, we see it being potentially a top priority of our, or it is top priority of ours in terms of wildfire mitigation. We feel some of the benefits of that would contribute to really the entire area.
Thank you very much.
Do you have time to ask any questions?
Moving on to public testimony in favor. Seeing none, public testimony in opposition. And we will start with Steve and Jackie Johnson.
So just a reminder for everybody, if you could, this is your opportunity to ask questions. I realize there was some confusion, but we do need to have people directing questions to Planning Commission. I realize there can be times where, especially with applicants sitting right here in the crowd, you're going to want to turn to them and ask questions. Just as a reminder, questions do need to go to Planning Commission. The applicant will have an opportunity to come at the end. They may or may not answer some of those questions, but that is their decision to make. So I just wanted to make that clear, make sure we're directing questions to Planning Commission, but this is your opportunity. If you can make sure we get a good mailing address, that's my last request.
Because I need to ask you, that, in that pole, is there 14 wires hanging from it? Looks like there is. Two wires and that big.
There may be more.
I'm going to be one probably, right?
I'll get that.
Well, the pictures I saw is that's gonna be a blur. I'm not opposed to transmission. But I'm opposed to transmission lines.
Mr. Townsend, so we can actually attribute this to you, your name and address to start, please.
You said my name is Steve and Jackie Johnson. My address is 246 Timber Basin, Sagal, Idaho. But I do own the house at 186 Rio Cinda. Okay? Why do I oppose? I don't understand why we can't run this power line to the south of 730. There's 2 or 3 power lines there already. I don't know why we can't can't just follow their line, even though it's zoned something that we can't get, that takes a while to get through. That's, I still think we should, rather than block the view of all these people, why not go there where nobody really cares what it is? That's,
You, there we go, okay. Number one for me is the property value. This will significantly reduce each and every property value on Rio Senda, the sellability and the value of the real estate. I also, number two, feel it has a strong impact on our community in Umatilla. The parks, the views, the golf, the neighborhood, and number three, my concern is that of the voltage and the health. I'm sure there's regulations that'll say it's safe, but I know we all wonder when we live so close to power what the real impact is. And I'm sad to come here and learn that we aren't as a community as valuable as the wetlands or the farm designation or the power being turned off at the prison. So we look to the city for our protection. If we rally behind you and you deny this request, then maybe a northern route could be considered more in-depth, more realistic. I wonder too about the community of Umatilla in that I don't believe everyone got a notice, just the property owners next to the core property. And it's a community to be sandwiched between two power highways is huge for our little McNair. And then I also wonder, once if you should choose to pass this conditional use, what would be the next use and the next use and the next use? And two small wires will turn into 14 to 20. So I beg the city to consider denying this request. Thank you.
Thank you. So sorry, looking down the list, I now see that things got crossed off. So it was Steve Johnson and Jackie Johnson, and there was also Aaron Johnson.
Yeah, please tell me.
I didn't come up because I wanted my own 5 minutes. My name is Aaron Johnson. I'm the current resident at 186 Rio Senda, Umatilla, Oregon 97882, and I'm planning on inheriting that property. My Army enlistment paperwork, my Army retirement paperwork, 27 years later, have the same address, 186 Rio Senda in Umatilla. This is my home. It has changed much between the time that I left and the time that I returned. Much of the ground I hunted on with my father and brothers is gone. You can't hunt on it. And a significant number of new houses have already been built. And the city council has done a wonderful job. I'm not complaining. Growth and development are important to this community. But most importantly, I'm the father of a 3-year-old daughter. I had planned on raising her in this community, the community I graduated from, where I know the people and I'm known by the people. Now I find myself having to ask the question, will it be safe? The power company can't answer, and the fact that they won't answer tells me that they already know. What about 3 to 18 years of exposure? What does that look like? And if I retire, that's 3 to 25 for me and my wife. What about the kids that live across the street from me? They didn't even get invited to this. commission? Sorry, I'm shaking because I'm a little bit concerned. Our federal government's interest is in water, cattle, agriculture, and renewable power generation, and perhaps rightly so. The state's interest is about the same. It could at least be said that I can reach my representative. UEC's interest is its customer, and who looks out for the people of this community? Shouldn't it be this commission? I'm not against development, and an expanded tax base benefits me and my family. But if it is done at the expense of those who already live in this community, at the expense of those who picked Umatilla and McNairy for the long term, that would be a disservice owned by this commission. I'm opposed because these lines are not safe and negatively affect this community's livability. That decrease of livability will be reflected in the local market. I'm opposed because these lines negatively impact the value of this community's property. I'm opposed to this plan because it subordinates the interests of this community to the interests of those outside this community. The route selected may be best, and it may be the most practical for UEC. It may be best, and it might be most practical for UEC's customer, but it's not the best for the residents of this community. And because of that, I ask that this commission reject this application so that another route may be considered. Thank you.
Okay, folks, I have to take a step back here and interject. A clause at the end of statements really is not appropriate in this venue. I understand people are emotionally charged, and there have been two really good presentations, but a clause is really not appropriate. Could we limit that, please? This is all getting recorded, and undoubtedly this thing will end up being appealed. And my job up here is to try to run this hearing in as efficient manner as possible. Thank you. Teresa Snyder.
Teresa Weinsteiger, 176 Rio Center Street, Umatilla, Oregon. I wrote a letter, and that's in the packets, that after visiting with the UEC representatives tonight, I had additional concerns that I wanted to be on record. Why did we only hear about this 2 days ago? It's been planned for quite some time. This is no time for us to even prepare or comment. Will we be compensated by someone for the loss of our property values? This is my retirement house that I bought almost 7 years ago. I'm retiring in a year. If I get sick and the kids have to sell my house to pay for my nursing home, I mean, it's really unfair and not right. Our homes that face the river on Rio Center already value a lot more than the homes on the other side of the street. So I think it's a huge impact on the reduction of the sellability of our homes. I see the poles on the map, and I asked exactly where they'll be placed, how many feet from the road. Someone brought up the point of the position of the pictures and how it doesn't really depict accurately what we're going to be looking at. And if they're, I would make a point that every window in my house faces the river except for 2 rooms. My deck, that's my peace. That's where I breathe. It's open space. I've always lived in the country, and I didn't want to move to town, but I needed to. I'm close to my family. I don't want to sit on my deck. And all right, so they're over the hill. I'm right in the middle of Rio Center. They're going to be over the hill. From what he presented, you know, I'm going to look at. I'm going to look at the tops of the poles with the wires. The worst part to have in my visual line of sight. We asked about underground options as a consideration. Somebody else said, let Amazon pay for it. Here, let them pay for it. We've also heard there's like 10 other businesses coming in. Are we gonna keep adding power lines and transmission lines until it looks like an industrial village in front of us? It ruins I walk my dogs every day at the park. We enjoy living along the river. The cruise lines coming through probably are gonna appreciate looking at power lines instead of the beauty of what is around the dam. Is there any consideration for those new lines to, along 730? They gave us an answer. He gave us an answer. None of us buy that. I think it's a bunch of crap. Sorry, Matt. And UEC is impacting all of us in this room. None of us. They aren't our party to let them go somewhere else. I oppose, and I beg of you.
Thank you. Tim Robinson.
Yeah, if I pop the mics, we might get it. It's off.
I'll just be added on with hers on opposing. She covered pretty much.
Thanks, sir.
What was the?
Can I just get an address, please?
128 Martin Loop. One of the spots that, I didn't mention is 19 houses up there.
Ann Robinson,
I agree.
same address.
Yeah.
Judy Lawrence,
I agree with all three. I'm 35.
I'm sorry, what was the name?
Judy Lawrence.
Thank you.
Mike Sullivan,
Site 120 Rio Santa Fe Canyon. Here tonight with a mix of concern and frustration, we've gathered here to discuss a critical issue that affects us all, the proposed transmission line project. While I recognize the importance of modernizing our energy infrastructure, it's equally crucial to ensure that these projects are developed responsibly and with respect for our communities and our environment. The National Governors Association has developed a set of recommendations for transmission siting and permitting that provide a clear roadmap for achieving this balance. These recommendations emphasize the importance of strategic land use, encouraging the steering of transmission routes away from environmentally or culturally sensitive areas. They also promote co-location of transmission infrastructure along existing or previously impacted areas, such as highway corridors. Crucially, the NGA stresses the importance of working with constituent groups to ensure that local community members have a voice and understand the options that might be brought to negotiations. We've been left out this entire time. It's kind of a theme in Umatilla right now. Regrettably, the proposed project appears to disregard these vital principles. We have a culturally important area along the river that is also a recognized nature preserve, a place of profound significance to our community. The river is featured in the city's very own logo. Yet this area is being considered for transmission lines despite the availability of readily accessible highway routes. It's a decision that defies logic and disregards the NGA's recommendations. The lack of community engagement prior to this meeting is deeply troubling. Meaningful public participation is essential for assuring that projects are developed with an understanding of those most affected. The absence of such engagement in this case is a significant oversight and a source of considerable frustration and likely a cause for misinformation and further stress of those most likely impacted. I urge the UEC to reconsider their approach and align their plans with the NGA's recommendations. I ask the Planning Commission to provide UEC an opportunity to withdraw this application and come up with a better one by denying it. I require a responsible and inclusive approach to the respects of our community, our environment, and our area's cultural heritage. Let's work together, find a solution that benefits all, does what we need to do to support industry, but that safeguards the treasure that is the Columbia River and the corresponding nature preserve that make our community so special and unique.
I'm Kyle Sight, 120 Rio Senda, near those same sediments by my wife.
Thank you, Kyle. Heidi and Kyle.
Mary, could you?
One eighty Rio said that.
Yep.
Just 10 days ago, myself and most of my neighbors, not all, who border the land owned by the Corps of Engineers, received a notice from the Planning Commission to consider the request from UEC to install a double circuit, 230 kilovolt transmission lines just yards from our property. Before 10 days ago, I hadn't felt the need to educate myself about these transmission lines. I understand that my limited research may be incorrect in some areas, but with my limited knowledge, I do though have thoughts and concerns about the project. Our concerns are our view, the noise, health and safety, and our property value. Our view and noise concerns. We purchased our home because of the fee, did our due diligence to be sure that there would not be homes built in front of us blocking our view. Our home is small and we very much enjoy our outside extended living space. We often have friends over and for outside gatherings, but even when it's just the two of us, we enjoy eating our meals outside when the weather's good, or looking from the view from the inside during cooler months. Looking at those rusty poles, rusty looking to me poles from transmission lines that are getting closer to our home would be sad, especially as more and more transmission lines will likely be needed in the future. I do understand that they will be only as tall as necessary. UEC has put out public information in the last week to let us know that these lines will be single poles. But if you read through the conditional use permit application to our planning commission, they show examples of what the lines possibly will look like. If you look online at what they, so here's a single pole. And they say, this is what it could possibly look like, UEC on there. And then this is the next page. So it's even bigger. We have no guarantee that it's a single pole. There would be not a noise issue, but many people who live near transmission lines report that it's a very loud noise and vibration from the lines, especially on breezy days. For the health and safety concerns that we have, the electric magnetic fields that EMFs produce by these transmission lines may or may not cause long-term health effects. EMF studies have not shown conclusive evidence that there may be a carcinogenic or other health issues. With long-term research is very much needed. I know that our appliances in our home also give off EMFs, but it would make sense to me that by adding more exposure that it potentially increase the negative health issues. Sometimes it takes many years before we realize that the things that we are exposing ourselves to can be deadly. Things like tobacco, arsenic, asbestos, formaldehyde, radon, those and other things were once thought to be safe. Some people have reported symptoms of exposure to EMFs to include things like headaches, anxiety, suicidal depression, nausea, fatigue, and loss of libido. The World Health Organization states that there is no clear evidence of negative health concerns, but they do note that long-term effects are unknown and possible. They also note that the studies have been presented for review to them may be biased. UEC has put on Facebook a link where they're answering questions about these transmission lines. I encourage you all to read through them or to read through those questions that they put on. One question stated, will this transmission line affect my health? In looking at their kind of response, they did not actually answer that question. I'm assuming that they didn't answer it because they cannot guarantee our safety. Property values is another concern we would like to stick in our home for many years to come. But if for some reason we should decide to move, our home value would most likely decrease with transmission lines installed closer to our home. The Journal of Real Estate Research found that vacant properties near the high voltage power lines sell for about 44.9% less than equivalent lots that are not near power lines. I'm asking the planning commission to take into consideration everyone's concerns, and I'm hoping to find an agreeable. And I'm hoping-
Thank you, Mayor. Okay.
She nailed it on the time.
Second for comments.
Same address.
Thank you, Scott. Michelle McIntyre.
I actually, 20 Rio Cinda, Michelle McIntyre. And I agree with everything that's been presented. I don't.
I would like to say something. I live at 20.
If you're gonna offer more comment, if I could get you to step up to the podium.
I live at 20 Rio Cinda in Umatilla, but I also lot directly next door to me on the same street.
Here, okay, it's a school here, we live on power line. So we have been there for so. And that's what I want to keep.
I'm sorry, what was your full name?
Mooney, Miller.
Stacy Becker.
Jason Picker, 164 Rio Cinda. I second exactly what you want said.
You guys, do we need to have you sign? Or are you capturing?
So far, we're doing good. I did just leave the live stream, so I was getting that back up. We should be up and running again.
We're trying to capture this multiple ways, folks. Felicia now?
Step down. My name is Rodney Harris.
Dr. Harris?
Rodney. 192 Rio Cinda. We moved over here to eventually retire. We bought our house exactly like everybody else for the view. I work for Amazon in the US. And I know where and the need for all the power isn't. You know, it's all AWS building data centers all over the place here.
It's not gonna get better. Thank you.
Director. And Tankersley.
I know one mark.
I'm having trouble here.
Yeah.
Oh,
I wasn't going to say.
if you're just gonna agree, as long as they can capture your name and address.
Name and address. I just want to emphasize the health risks. Can I say that from here?
If I can get a name and address, yes.
901 Marks Road, my house actually faces Riverside and the river. And I agree with everything everybody said, but I'm concerned mostly, I think, about health things. When we moved in 12 years ago, we decided to risk the living in front of an electric facility. We knew there was a risk. We live in front of silos, and there could be things in the silos that are flammable. So we've got two things on either side of our house. Yeah, it could be risky, but now we're adding more to it. I just want to give an example. Recently, we had an emergency broadcast where everybody was supposed to participate. I worked at the school and everything went off. We have all this, what do you call it, frequency going on. After that, all of a sudden I've got tinnitus. We don't know what kind of effect things have on us. I don't know if the broadcast thing did that to my ears. I'm old, it could have been that. But adding all this electric in front of all of our houses, I'm concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric.
Mr. Chair, before we move on, can I just get a name? Ma'am? Ann.
And Tanker.
And take.
I got you that time. Thank you.
We grab 1.4, the agenda. And my wife done now. And we agree with comments and questions previously made by fellow members of our community. Just two additional points to add. Just in addition to the views, we've been talking a lot about our own views, obviously, and why we purchased the properties that we live at, and we're willing to pay the absorbent taxes that we do on that particular street. Just recognizing that's where we get there. Unitil literally has two viewpoints, developed viewpoints that are looking over that exact same view that we have. They are maintained and used every single day by residents, not just those who live up and visit our streets. So just want to point that out, that this is more than just about residents in this particular neighborhood. And many of the comments have focused on the cost to property values. The alternative routes to the south were, in the words of the presenter earlier, not deemed as practical as the proposed route. I suggest that practical is simply another way of saying cheaper. I think we all know what that means. In other words, the opportunity cost of this proposed cheaper or practical route is simply being passed on to the residents who do not use or directly benefit from UEC's proposal in any way. He did not say that they couldn't build it. He simply said that the north route was the most practical route. And so I urge the commission to deny the proposal.
Thank you.
It's just super one.
David Randall. Randall.
I concur and oppose. I live at 116 Rio Senda.
Thank you, Sheriff. Lady Ferguson.
Words. Betty Turgison, I live at 116 Rio Senda. I've lived there since 2005. It's a wonderful place to live, so far so good. But I am really concerned about these transmission lines. All the things that we've heard so far in this meeting are true, I believe. And there are consequences that we have to do something about. We have to deal with them. We have to do something now. And one of the things, I agree with everything that's been brought up, every single thing. They're all concerns, and we have them all. But one thing that hasn't been mentioned, which is maybe not quite as important, but it's a question that I have and I'm wondering about it, is all of us on Rio Senda pay our electric bill to Pacific Power. And I don't know why. What does Julie, what are they gonna do for us on Rio Senda? Are we gonna get benefits as members? Because people who have, pay money to electric, to the Umatilla, and the electric company, they all get benefits from that. What about us? What about all of these other little things that haven't been mentioned that Pacific Power has to do with, and now we're gonna have to deal with. We're gonna have to deal with all these things. So I'm very concerned, and I'm very interested in the turnout and what happens next. Thank you so much.
Thank you. For Rivera.
And I did 40 years in that, and one of the ones.
So my name is Armando Armenta, same thing from Fort and Rio Senda. So it's been like 4 years since we built that house. And the only reason that we built it was so we could be closer to my nephews, because my brother passed away. I know for a fact that over on trip of 111 Pine Tree, her parents live there. And they live close to the power lines. And it is true what everybody is saying. You do hear that buzzing, and it is annoying. I mean, obviously, like, for example, it doesn't bother them because they're not gonna live right next to it. They're not gonna have to deal with it. Same thing like with everybody's comments, you know, and concerns that, you know, their health. I have 5 kids. We have 5 kids. And I don't want my kids around those things. So I mean, like everybody else here, I do urge you guys to deny this. Because there's no benefit for any of us other than our health being at risk. I don't know if you guys live there, but I'm pretty sure that you guys wouldn't want to be put in that situation. And you guys would want people to hear you out as well and deny something like this coming to next to your house. You know, I'm not opposed to, you know, having renewable energy or, you know, all this, but there is plenty of other routes, plenty of other ways that they can go about it. I mean, like, our neighbors came to our door and they said, hey, did you know that this was gonna happen? We didn't even know. We didn't get a letter, nothing. One of our neighbors knocked and they're like, you guys should go. We don't normally attend these type of, you know, events. But I mean, everybody's concern is about the view. It is legit about the top of their house and everything. I'm more concerned about my kids' health. And, you know, my in-laws, they live right next to those power lines. And it does affect them. So it does have an effect. It's not something that, you know, they're saying like, hey, you know what? It's gonna be far away, you won't have to hear it, you know, but honestly, I don't believe it because they listen to it all day. And I'm pretty sure if they would get a chance to move, they would move. And like everybody else is saying, that is a beautiful view. Why would you guys want to damage it? Or like, why would you guys want to build it right there in front of that beautiful view? That everybody, right now, there's people right now sitting at that view overlooking the sunset, the sunrise. During the summer, we go out, we go walk with our kids. I mean, I just urge you guys to deny this. I mean, that's it.
Thank you. Marquis.
I'm Mark Keith, 32 Rio Senda, and also 82346 Bucks Lane. And as a former fire medic here in town, and also a former board member of the fire department, I think that the fire concept going for valid. The wildfire that hit September 5th of 2020, some of us forgot how that started. That was a real bad thing. It took about 8 minutes to get up to the back of Longport, and the guys did a great job knocking it down. I know after being a board member and being a fire medic, there's not enough resources to get that many people there in 8 minutes to block that 30-foot cutback and to stop it. So that's a big consideration. We don't have the staff for that. We don't even have a paramedic in town. So the next part of it is, as former council member, I also want to go back and address something we did in 2017, 18, and 19. We did a huge study on the amenities of Umatilla, through that big thick book that Tamara Babbitt worked on. We were out at auditing the properties, and the river properties, the golf course, the marina, all of those amenities that are down there in the Army Corps zone, they're affected by all of this. So I think it's not just that one power line, it could be the next ones and the next ones that would just abolish that book that we did. It's a big thing down there, and I think that a couple of us hit on that, the amenities of the city. The next part of this too is I think there's power lines in the Everglades. I've toured the Everglades, been all through it, so I don't think the swamp water is a deterrent. I think that's kind of getting people to have the education on how to do it, but all through the Everglades when I toured it, power lines. I received a notice at Encore that came to my name and to Jennifer's name and to the corporation, but I did not receive one at 32 Rio Senda. So the only reason I'm opposed to it right now is that I don't think proper notice went out. I also like to comment that some people made that live behind Rio Senda, that since the community aspect of all the amenities that we promoted during my time on council and through the planning that we did, that we need to really address the community and get a full town hall meeting going on for all the people we see on the hot seat talking about it. I don't think that the 130-foot towers are going to hurt our views on the end down where Michelle and Vic are talking about or running that. I don't think that's going to be a huge corridor issue. I do think the fire issues are down there because of the way that I saw how fast it came up that hill. The next point is can we go with more poles and maybe go lower? The view after going through some different people that I've talked to here in the city and associated to this with UEC, the view is not going to be considered, guys. I'm sorry to say it. I know we're all talking about it, but it's not one of the considerations in the land use, and it's not the application processes. It's all about where can they put it. And so I think the view thing's going to be thrown out. It sucks. It's good. It is. And the health thing is probably also going to be in there. I mean, I've worked under those power poles for 7 years now. That's why I lost the hair of it. I don't know. I don't think that's going to be considered either. The other big part of this, I think, is overall looking at the long term. That's something that Mary mentioned and a couple other people. I think there could be one pole that goes in, but it might just be the standard after that. Unless I figure it out. And there's also a huge data center. I think improved. I don't know the details of it, but there's one that's twice the size of the Amazon. What is it on 130 acres down past the prison? Is that true? Is there another huge data center going in down there? So I think that all this power is going to keep running down there. There's a lot of undeveloped acreage down there that I think is going to come into play with more power lines. That was my conclusion. The only reason I'm opposed right now is because of the proper notice thing. I heard about it from a flyer that I saw Mary put out, and then I got one through drunk. So the last thing I want to say is that in kind of what CDC is doing, I started working with CDC on this project in late 22. They came and met with Jennifer and I at Encore and asked about doing a power line right through the windows of the building. We're like, no way. We went back through the title reports and there was not listed as an easement at that time on our closing papers. And so, but when we went to 100 plus, magnifying glass view of this, in 1954, there's a big blue overlay of the whole property, And so that page came out and the executive said, this is what we can actually. Whoa, whole thing's coming. So there wasn't many options there. What I can say is through a 1.5-year process of working with the executive team, the real estate team, I'm not gonna mention their names because they're great people. You guys have done a great job. They did go around the property and down away from the property on the other one. So they are very worked on the properties. I wouldn't say that, they were a whole process. It took a 1.5 years, but the process just takes time. It's not gonna be settled in 10 minutes. Yeah, it took a 1.5 years. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Bill Pratt?
Bill Pratt, 148 Rio Senda Street. I think all the input on this opposition has been excellent. And I might have missed something with UEC on the power lines that are existing on 730. Why can't we go up to those power lines and then run it that way? That's my question. They're already existing on 730, so. So that's my question. I moved to 148 Rio Senda for the view, and I compromised health. I don't really want extra power transmission lines in front of me, in my view, when we already have power lines on 730. So we're kind of in a, we have it on both sides. So let's just keep it on 730 or put it in the ground. I mean, I would think that the residents should be able to say over Amazon for power use.
Thank you. So at this stage, I think I know I missed one person.
I didn't get here in time to sign off on it.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, Bob. I do have a view where I live, wait, 6 miles up the street from you guys. So I know about views and I know about power lines. I deal with power lines every day, it seems like. And on that note, we have a lot of properties that do have power lines going through wetlands, a lot of them. And on various places, those are really hard to put in power lines with a lot of rock, a lot of drilling, costs a lot more to put them there if they're doing it. And on that note, I have on my 34-acre property, just south of Amazon 63, we have 2 huge 500Ks going through there right now. And which they haven't brought up is they're putting another 250 right beside those that I didn't even know about. So I'm gonna have 3 huge tower ones going through a property. To give you an example of future down the road, I'm experiencing that right now. I've been told hypothetically that those are really old towers and they were gonna take the big ugly ones out. I don't know that, but I'd love to ask the board to ask. It doesn't feel like this guy has all the answers for that. He's mainly representing the company just for the proposal of the permit. And but that would be one question I'd like to know, and I know for a fact. I'd love to see that map. You can see it on tax lot 2300. I don't know if you can pull that up, Brandon, or not, but that would actually show that if he doesn't mind.
I guess it's gonna break again.
On everybody's paper that they have. So it's really frustrating because that's how we make our money is on that property. And if I put more poles, I know I have to stay so far away, 150 feet away and so much grade and all that per pole. But that, and I don't know why they're putting a whole new one where they could just go back over to the, come straight south, go to the BPA land instead of through my property over to that project 63. There's no reason you can't do that, other than I lease that 25 acres from BPA. but I wouldn't be the one that has to give permission for him to do that. But I'm on a whole different thing, but I agree with everybody here. I know there's other routes. And I mean, I deal with this stuff every day. So I'm very used to it. And it's kind of all dropped on my feet, 12 years ago to take care of all this stuff. I've been trying to take care of all of my dad has started and try to keep his legacy going. And he did really good for everybody in the community for a long time, keeping everything so everybody's happy. But for alternate routes, there are, and I know that it's not, it's a pain, you gotta go through a lot of stuff. With the wetlands, because I'm actually in the middle of a trade for 2 acres for 5 acres with the wetlands, just to do a project that I'm on. And I know it's totally doable, and I'm doing it right now. We just do all the water samples and dirt samples. So they will work with you. But it's just, the process is terrible. It takes a few years to get where I'm at, but it's doable, so you guys know that. I want you to know that you can't do that. And they know they can do it, there is a lot of politics to it, it takes a lot of planning, and you have to do all your research, impacts and all that stuff, which is a pain in the butt. I mean, I have to do it too, I'm having to do it on this deal I'm doing, but I'm doing it myself just as an individual right now, without any attorney. But it is doable. I feel for all you, because just you people in the room have millions of dollars invested in your view. And like me too, I have a lot invested where I live. And luckily, I don't have all that stuff in the way, but I do see every night now a big Amazon property from my view already, all lit up. So it kind of takes away from your stuff. Not too bad, it's a little bit, but that's nothing to do with power lines. But with growth, everybody has got to understand with growth, it can be growing pains. Everybody knows that. And as long as everybody kind of, stays on the same track with everybody and tries to work things out. I mean, there's been a lot of things been railroaded through here and happened. And like you say, a lot of people are not notified. Only I've notified if I have property on that. I don't think anybody around me would ever care because I'm in industrial. And they don't, they're not going to be notified for that sale on that property. They're not going to see nothing because it's more out of the way. But on that note, where my business is, we have a 500K, 250K already going through that property. And then during the day, rain is your worst enemy on power lines. If you up here, I'm snapping accident. That's just the way it is. You don't want to go out back and lean on a piece of equipment because it'll, or someone's door on their pickup, tap you a little bit. But that is concern for you guys. I would say you won't ever feel that because I think it'll be far enough away from and all that. But the only time you really hear the noise, I would say, is if it's raining and the ground dead, all that. That's pretty bad with the lines and stuff, and crackle and pop. But if anybody ever wants to, they're more welcome to come to my business. And out back, we have those lines and you can actually test it and see how far. I mean, you're more than welcome to anytime and get a feel for what and they're fairly tall, they're not terribly tall. But I'm just trying to tell them to support these guys. And really don't know how to put a power line, another one through my property and already have, I don't know why or how that's happened. So that's where I'm a little concerned. But I don't know if you guys looked at the map already, but they're coming straight up south and they're coming across the property, going across the property. And then right where the ranch was, and all the way back where there is a little substation and shooting across instead of just going right on EPA line. He's really simple. Probably saves a lot of money. But I don't know if you guys have to have permission for that or not. But I didn't give you permission. It's funny to say it, because I already got, I don't even know what the easement is there. I think I got 250 and a 250, but there must be adding another 250 too. But I'd really love the board to ask those questions for me. Please, and thank you, and good luck to everybody, and that's all I can say.
Thank you. We wish you.
speak loud. My name is Jerry Collins. I live at 100 Grissom Street, in Tulare. We bought our property 30 years ago. Summertime, we live on the deck. I got 2 years to go. Plan on selling and moving to Sandpoint, Idaho. Into a retirement community. This is gonna evaluate a property for all these years that I've enhanced the property and saved money. Two beautiful ladies came by my house from UEC. And I asked them, why can't you go underground? Oh, that's true. I said, there's the problem. You're not looking at anybody's property values or views, nothing. All you're doing is looking how cheap you can get by. I beg you to deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Have I missed anybody else?
So, Mr. Chair, if there's anybody else who wanted to come up, we do have sign-in sheets in the back. We would just ask that you make sure we get your name on the record and sign in the back for us. But we're happy to accommodate folks coming up.
If you'd make sure you sign in. We'll take the testimony now, but if you'd make sure to sign in before you get out of here.
I'm just gonna talk about, I'm speaking for my father, who lives at 188 Rio Seca, Scott Beardsley. And I'm going to read his letter. Dear Planning Commission members, we are writing to express our deep concerns regarding the proposed UEC McNary Wapana transmission line project and its potential impact on the Umatilla community. Specifically, its impact on our home, family, and quality of life. We have lived in this house for approximately 20 years, and we plan to live out our lives here. We bought this house because of the wonderful, peaceful view. Don't take that away from us. Since having my stroke 14 years ago, I spend a great deal of time in my chair staring out over the dam and enjoying the view. I do not wish to see power lines. I agree with my neighbors, Scott and Mary Cahill, in respect to consideration reviews, possible health implications, impact to our property value. See attached letter, which we've already submitted. Why can't the transmission line be placed on Highway 17 by the other transmission line? I understand the importance of this line and the impact of the money it represents, but not in my backyard. Sincerely, Scott.
Thank you. If you can catch the sign-in sheet in back. Thank you very much. Can I request a break?
Absolutely.
I've been drinking water. Well, this has been going on. You've all been a wonderful audience, respectful. It's really neat seeing the town come out and get involved. Thank you very much. I would like to request a 5-minute break.
Can I ask one question real quick? Will there be any voting done by the commission tonight in this situation?
Good question. I don't know whether this will end up in a continuance to another meeting or whether we'll get to a point where anybody's ready to vote.
So that's 5 minutes. What's wrong with you? Oh, you're gonna break everything. I wasn't crazy.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Do professionally. Nothing.
I guess just last call. This is, we will be moving on to applicant rebuttal at this point. So this is kind of last call. If you want to get up and need anything in the public record, this would be your last opportunity.
Rebuttal testimony. I'm sure we missed.
Yes, I just wondered about one thing said by someone. It is now okay time to do that, so add to my additional testimony.
If you would like to allow him back up to Al for some more comment, Mr. Chair, that's your preference. But once we move into applicant.
My Jared Tesh, 144 Rio Cinda. I just want to point out, I don't remember the gentleman's name. Mentioned that views are not important, and I just wanted to call up the own commission's wording and language on the things you're supposed to consider. And it does specifically say, the plan commission shall determine the proposed site location to best serve the intended area and its impacts on the surrounding properties, and appropriate mitigating measures are identified. Such facilities shall be located, designed, and installed with regard to aesthetic values. That's one place. And there's actually two other references specifically, that point out aesthetic value and the views, for lack of a better term, for the community. And I just want to point out, it wasn't just, we can't just disregard views. You can.
Thank you for the opportunity to rebuttal. Thank you, meeting members. Thank you for your engagement, participation. Thank you for allowing me to be engaged, participate in this process. I do first and foremost just want to start by saying we hear you, we understand, I hear you, I understand. Speak on myself as an individual. I'm a very community focused individual myself. I have a family in the Hermiston area raising a 2-year-old son. So I sympathize and can empathize with some of your concerns, your challenges that you are bringing. So I just want to say that first and foremost. And just to address a few of the questions, I don't think I will be able to get to all of them. Property value, many have expressed concern in property value. Fortunately, I don't feel like it is Units Electric place to be able to provide an appropriate response thereby sort of, because of that, I don't feel property value. A few have asked about underground similar, or some have even mentioned the cost being the primary driver. Cost is a driver. However, there is significant impacts to underground as well, such as ground disturbance, further environmental impacts from an operation and maintenance standpoint. Underground transmission is not what Units Electric is capable to do at this time. Across our service territory, we don't have a single mile of transmission, whether that's 115 or 230 underground. And then someone brought up building underground in high risk areas. I'm attempting to remember, just notes. So if I don't, I do apologize. Someone had mentioned putting underground in high risk areas. What that was referring to is distribution, which is your typical going to residential homes. Putting that underground in the high risk areas, which is up near the West Mountain Mission area, for mountainous terrain, trees, of what we deem as high risk. That does not minimize the concern that these folks are having regarding wildfire. And again, I want to go back to my presentation where I referred to, we feel it's appropriate that, or I would like to state that with this line, or proposed line, it would be encompassed inside or within our wildfire mitigation plan, thereby having an increased focus in vegetation management and maintenance. Someone had asked, how far are the structures? Like, truly, how far? I know the simulations were renders and for visually appealing. Some folks expressed concerns in terms of accuracy. What I can say is north of Rio Cinda, we are looking at distances around 650 to 1,000 feet. It ranges. And then up near Riverside Avenue, they do come up to 300 feet. Other questions? There are some other questions that unfortunately I don't feel I have technical expertise to be able to quickly answer. And because Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, you had said several letters had come in regarding or were included in the packet.
Correct. I believe, exhibits 11 through 19 were new submissions as of tonight.
So there were some questions that I feel we would like to take some time to answer, as well as because of the new evidence, I would like to submit a written request to have the record open for an extended period of time. I do have that written request with me now. I don't know if
I guess just point of clarification, are you asking for a continuance or to leave the written record open and we do the 777 kind of?
What's that?
I will let him finish his comments, and if the planning commission chooses to honor that request, I can get into specifics so everybody knows how to participate.
Again, what I will close with is we care wholeheartedly, we understand. I sat here taking notes, and like I said, there, which is the information that I feel I need to obtain and put into the document, so you guys are well informed, and so the planning commission is well informed for a decision. Again, we appreciate the time. As a co-op, one of our guiding principles is concern for community. I know many of you have said you're not UEC, but regardless of concern for community, it's within our, it's not just members. So Gary area, Umatilla area, you are our neighbors, you are our community. We hear you wholeheartedly, and with that, planning commission, I appreciate the opportunity for the rebuttal, appreciate the opportunity for the presentation to the community members, appreciate your engagement and participation on this matter. Thank you.
Can we add one question?
No.
So Mr. Chair, if I may just interject, Weston, you are requesting we leave the record open and proceed with a 777 approach.
So we have a request from the applicant.
Correct. Just because I can see everybody looking this way and wanting some information, and maybe that I know I have some newer commissioners, so maybe you guys haven't got to deal with this one yet. So generally speaking, when planning commission is not able to reach a decision the night of, there's kind of two options. One is a continuance where we would just continue it and we resume at the next planning commission meeting, kind of where we left off. The other option is often, I think it would be a good route in this case, where most of the public comment has come in, but the applicant feels they need to address something. They can request the written record remain open. Okay, so I say 777 because the next three kind of steps come in 7-day increments, or more or less a week. So the first week, so if planning commission chose to grant the applicant's request, it is your guys' consideration if you want to approve it or deny it. The UEC would have a week or 7 business days, so by next Wednesday, to submit new material to address the questions that they felt came in during the planning commission hearing. Anybody here who offered comment is eligible to come in and ask. So after that 7 days, we will put all of that information together in one packet. If you want to participate, you can come in and talk to staff. You have then 7 days to respond to that material, right? So we kind of redo the process a little bit. The applicant gets to submit material for the first week. Everybody gets to review it and submit their rebuttal the next week. The final step is the applicant does get to respond to anything that was turned in from the community. They can't submit new evidence at that point in time, right? So we're closing the record, but they do get an opportunity to at least address any comments that came in. I guess planning commission, do you have any questions for me on that process? But that is kind of the very high level overview of how that would work moving forward.
Just to be clear on it, so the difference between that and continuing is continuing does the same thing. We just leave it all until the next hearing.
But continuing leaves the record open. So then at the next public hearing, somebody could bring up something new, right? So under the 7-7 approach, UEC could submit information. People could choose to respond to that or not, but we can't bring up new issues. We're saying that at this point in time, we've taken all of the public comment and we do want to allow the applicant additional time to respond. Because it is a public process, we then have to allow everybody who participated the opportunity to then respond again. But it does officially, the public record would close tonight in a leave the record, the written record open, right? We're not going to reopen. We're not going back into public hearing mode.
Let me ask you this, if I could, to be just specific.
Yep.
If we want to hear why the alternative path wouldn't work in complete detail, why wetlands wouldn't work and why this would work. If we do the 7-7-7, Can we still get that information detailed out because he doesn't have the technical knowledge? If they might, somebody might be able to explain that further, or would that be a continuance?
So I won't speak for UEC and if they would be able to submit anything to address those specific comments. Again, it's up to the applicant to choose what they want to submit or not. They certainly could submit something to address that. They may not. At that point, Planning Commission would at least be able to look and say, well, we took the extra information in, it didn't really answer the question, or maybe it did. But that just gives them the opportunity to try and answer your questions. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that every single question that came up would get some sort of response.
You know, Bill, I don't understand what you're talking about. If we did the 777, if we did a continuance, could we instruct them to give us more detail?
So we can never instruct the applicant that they have to submit something.
Requested.
You can very much ask for it or say you would like to see it. It is up to them if they want to submit it.
Thank you.
You're looking this way. Do you want me to help steer a little bit here or? So we have the request, I guess, if Planning Commission is willing to move that direction, then we would move to close the public hearing, but we would leave the public record open for written submissions following the 777 timeline. So the applicant would have 7 days or until Wednesday at 5 o'clock or close of business next week to submit their additional material. Anybody who is here could make a request tonight. So if we end up approving that, please come talk to either Marcella or Nancy so we can get contact information, but then we would proceed forward from there.
Can we discuss whether we're happy with the applicant's request or talk amongst ourselves about whether would rather have a continuance?
So you can talk if you would like to do the continuance or not, but I wouldn't get into the actual discussion of the application material. It's just, do we feel comfortable with where we are in the process in allowing the continuance request?
Just discussion about the procedure.
Yeah. I'm still, if the 777 restricts us to request for information, not to serve them, continuous, we can't request information.
Commissioner Noel, could I get you to speak into the mic so everybody can hear?
Yeah, we're just talking about, if we do want to make a request for more information on something, if we're limited by that 777, or if we have a better opportunity to make those requests with a continuance.
So just to be clear, whether we're in a continuance or a 777, we can't obligate the applicant to submit anything ever. That is their choice if they want to. We can very much encourage to submit something, but that is their choice.
I understand the request would be regular, but we can request it either way.
Correct.
My concern is about notice. There were several people who said that they didn't feel like they had adequate notice. And so if we close the public record, then we might be missing testimony from people who either didn't have notice or didn't have time to get here.
That was a key point, proper notice.
So I won't speak to every specific one. I was able to verify a couple of the folks who said they missed notices. I do have copies of the envelopes that were mailed on the notice. So just to give everybody an idea, it wasn't that we intentionally excluded people. The city staff have to follow our adopted code to the letter. We don't provide a notice above or beyond. So we go 100 feet from the property line for any property that the transmission line crossed. If you look at most of the property depths, right, that gets us about halfway through a
items. 6.1 residential zoning ordinance discussion.
I apologize. I'm a little disorganized after all of that, so I will try and keep it fairly brief. So I did include all the way at the back of the packet. I'm not sure that you guys noticed. There was a couple copies of our current zoning ordinance and a zoning map. Ultimately, city staff has been having multiple conversations with developers, mostly looking to come into town to do more kind of apartment or multifamily type development. Also getting into some of what the state calls missing middle housing. So that's duplexes, townhouses, triplexes, or quadplexes. Ultimately, in the last cycle, once again, the legislature amended some of the housing rules. So we originally, because we are under 5,000, had to allow ADUs within any lot in city limits. The legislature has now come back and lowered the limit. Originally, cities over 10,000 had to allow duplexes in all their residential lots. So the legislature has come back and now lowered that threshold to 5,000. So by July of 2025, we will have to amend our residential codes to allow duplexes in all our residential zones. That is really the way the state, in my view, the state land use has been moving, especially in housing. So staff has been trying to be proactive in getting some code updates done. Obviously, we've looked at cottage clusters. We've done a lot of amendments. We've tried to be proactive and kind of stay out in front of the changes that are coming from the state. At this point in time, because we're going to have to allow duplexes in our single family residential zone, it's not really a single family residential zone anymore. So staff is suggesting, and we've kind of talked with this high level at city council as well, that we likely look to do some simplification. So right now we have 3 residential zones. We have our single family residential, medium density, and then multifamily. If you actually go through and look at those R2 and R3 uses, they are almost identical with the exception of you can't build a single family dwelling in the R3 or the multifamily. Outside of that, really the only other difference is you get a little bit of more density in the R3 than you do in the R2, and you can start to do some other conditional uses like a manufactured home park or some of those other alternative options. It is staff. The other thing I will just point out, if you look at the map, and I apologize, it's very, very little. There's only about 9 properties or in that kind of dark blue, purpley color in the entire city that are zoned multifamily residential. Because of all of the changes and to try and simplify code, staff is recommending we probably move our R1 or our single family and call that just a low density residential to make that just a little bit more streamlined. And staff is actually going to recommend that we probably look to combine our R2 and our R3. The reality is for a city our size, we're not big enough to really have a multifamily or a high density or a more urban zoning designation where you're getting up into the 40+ units per acre and you're really trying to cram units in there. I think if we have a good kind of low density zone and then we kind of meet in the middle and have, we can pick what we want to call it, whether it's medium density or what we want to call that other residential zone. But I do think that adds more flexibility for developers. I think it keeps us in a good position to be able to go after developers and especially some of these missing middle type of housings to maybe start to get some other just single family home type developers to come to town. Council did have a few concerns, mostly about potentially raising height limits. Again, I did point out that these would still be lower than any of our commercial or industrial zones, but it would be an increase likely in the R2, going from 40 feet to 45 to bring it up to match what the R3 currently is. And it would likely be an increase in density as well. So right now, if you go down and do the math in our R3, we come out to about 27 units an acre. Hermiston is about in those 20 range. But if you want to get into like the Pendletons, Ontarios, or the Grands, where you can think of maybe some of those cities in Eastern Oregon where you do kind of get the more mixed developments in the downtown, right? Those are typically up into the 35 units an acre. So that is probably where staff is going to be looking to get to. But I guess I was mostly looking to see from Planning Commission, does anything that I just said give you guys a lot of heartburn? Would you have any objections to potentially combining codes to try and simplify things? Do you think there's a really strong value in trying to keep an R3 and an R2? Or I guess I just wanted to see where the commission was before staff spends a bunch of time to actually start drafting code and start bringing you guys the options.
So I would be concerned only because, I think it would be in the, like, looking at the long-term vision. I would prefer to see family housing versus a bunch of apartment complexes and Umatilla turning into a pit stop of, right now what we're dealing with honestly is a bunch of construction workers coming, renting for, a couple months, maybe a year, whatever. Everyone knows that Amazon builders are here for a couple of years, but they're not gonna be Umatilla residents. How are they contributing to Umatilla? How will they contribute to Umatilla in the long run? Or are they gonna just use our town to come here for a few years and then leave? Sure, as a realtor speaking, if they buy a house, that, that gives me a job, but I'm looking long-term resident and a real estate agent here, where I want people with qualities that contribute to our community to come, not turn it into an apartment complex situation or clusters or whatever. So I would be a little hesitant to approve something like this because I would want to be inviting developers that bring quality houses versus, hey, let's throw all these apartments together and rent them. Rent is already expensive. So how many renters, which is all great for other business purposes, not going off track too much, but I would want to have people just come in here and invest in this community versus contribute to.
That's a good point. Let me ask Brandon to a point. So we would still keep our single family, we still have the low density to have what she's talking about available. All we're doing is basically not adding more apartment. We're just merging what we have into two categories instead of one. It wouldn't make a bigger area for apartments. Right? You're not expanding the.
Correct. So in our R2 zone, you can already build apartments. It's at a little bit lower density, but that option is already there. So any of kind of the green or purple on that map, right, that is already in our medium density residential, those could already be developed with apartments. My recommendation is we probably add a little bit more density so that they can, to be quite honest, so they can get a couple more units in those apartment complexes, really within the same footprint. The issue we're having is just with the number of units, the cost of specifically commercial construction right now, because it is significantly more than your traditional detached single family right now. It's not penciling for a lot of developers, or at the price that they're able to get those units to market, they're having a hard time getting them rented. So adding a little bit of density so that they have a little bit more to spread that out over, we do believe would increase the potential for people to come in and build apartments. Just to be clear, we are still going to continue working on the single family homes and all of that. I would actually argue that combining the two zones would then allow single family homes on all of that R3 property. So it actually adds more single family potential to zones that don't currently allow it than the other way around.